And it's the start of another week. You're watching the polls on the JoyNews channel, DSTV channel 421. Go TV is channel 144. I'm blessed Sogah. And coming up this afternoon on the polls, crunch meeting underway in Accra over the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa as Director General of the Ghana Education Service. This afternoon, JoyNews checks reveal there are no academic activities taking place in schools nationwide. Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament is asking for a quick intervention. We'll bring you details shortly. Also, two major staff associations at the 46 colleges of education here in the country have threatened to lay down their tools if government does not prioritize their welfare. We'll get you the concerns of CTAC shortly. Meanwhile, also happening in Parliament, we'll bring you the latest here on the polls as leadership is whipping up 136 MPs to be present in the House for a vote of censure as the fate of the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is set to be decided this week in Parliament.
Motion of censure is slated to be moved on Thursday, the 10th of November 2022. And the majority chief, the Honorable Mutaka Mubarak, has sounded a note of caution to all minority MPs that all the 136 MPs must be in the chamber on Thursday.
Exactly what are the concerns of the minority? We'll get all of them here on the polls. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Don't forget that the polls, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. We're streaming live on YouTube. Social media is at JoyNews on TV. Thanks for choosing us. We'll be back with the details shortly. And this afternoon, a meeting is underway at the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations over the decision by government first of all the teacher unions to withdraw their services over the appointment of the new Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Dr. Eric Nkansa. JoyNews checks reveal that there were no academic activities in all pre-tertiary schools across the country. Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament is mounting pressure. They want the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei-Duchum, to immediately resolve the concerns of the teachers. Speaking to journalists, the minority spokesperson on education says the committee will be forced to intervene if the minister is unable to get the teachers back into our classrooms.
Let me begin by saying that some of us were not happy with the circumstances that surrounded the dismissal of the former Director General, that is Professor Opoku Amankwa. We have worked with him and we know what he could do and what he was doing. But unfortunately, we are not the appointing authority. So they knew why they removed him. And why we're not happy was that this man had about a few months to go on retirement. So the best could have been ask him to go on retirement prior to retirement. But this was not done. So we are not quite happy with that. But with the appointment of the Director General, that is Dr. Eric Nkansa, as a committee or as an individual, we don't have a hand in it. Yeah, so it is solely the government. But the dimension it has taken now gives us a concern as far as teacher unions declaring a strike from today, 4th of November, yeah. So I would rather call on the Minister for Education to engage the teacher unions and explain to them the rationale behind the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa. So as a committee, we have decided that we will sit back now, watch events, and then where we realize that there is no solution, then we will come in. But we believe that the minister can do something about this as quickly as possible, because the strike action will not help anybody.
And indeed, the situation is not helping as JoyNews checks revealed that there were no academic activities happening on campus at the start of the day. Doesn't look like that will be the case. But we can now cross over to the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, where a lot of engagements have been happening all throughout the day between the government of Ghana and all the teacher unions. My colleague Richard Kojenyanko has the latest. Richard, what can you report?
Of the new Director General of the Ghana Education Service. In fact, in a short while, there will be a meeting between the Employment Ministry and the teacher unions, and we are hoping that the outcome will be beneficial to parents as well as students here. We are currently at the Ghana Education Service, and we want to have a brief interaction with the Deputy Spokesperson of the Ministry of Education to tell us, what is being put in place to ensure that the students do not stay in the classroom without their teachers, and the level of engagement between the ministry and then the teacher unions as well as the labor ministry. So tell me the level of engagement you've had with the teacher unions that are currently on strike.
Yeah, as you know, on Friday we started the engagement with them, and per the outcome of the engagement that we had, that is what has prompted the continuation of the meeting today. And per the discussion and the demeanor of our able union leaders, it was fruitful, and we expect that today, probably, I'm hopeful that finally it will be brought to this. There will be a closure on the matter before both parties. So we don't expect the strike to drag for long. Probably to tomorrow or today, we could see positive response. I'm confident with the kind of engagement that have gone so far, and both parties are committed to the cause. And where clarity needs to be given, clarity is given out, and parties will look at the issues on the table and eventually give a firm decision on it. At the end of the day, both are serving the interest of Mother Ghana, and our kids' future is at stake here. So nobody sits on the fence, and we want to continue where we ended from on Friday, and eventually draw the curtains close on all the engagement. I'm hopeful that it wouldn't travel. Hopeful that even today, probably we may have a positive response and the strike may be called off.
So today we went round and we saw in some of the classroom in one school that I visited, out of the 10 teachers that were supposed to be in school, 2 of them turned up, and you can imagine what will be happening in the classroom at that particular point in time. It's not all of them that have joined the action though. What practical measures have you put in place? Because yes, you're explaining that you don't expect that the strike will drag for that long time because you know what's up, your sleeves.
Yeah, we at our end also have been monitoring what is happening on the ground. Just as you said, others are in, others are also not in class to perform their normal duties as expected. But as I indicated, we are monitoring the situation on the ground, and as we do monitor and keeping close eye on the outcome of today's meeting, that will definitely inform our next move as to curtailing the situation or containing the situation down there. But as I indicated, with the assurance and the confidence that I have in both parties, we don't expect it to drag. Just that even an hour or a minute lost through the contact or instructional hours, time is a resource that you cannot replenish back. Once it's gone forever. It only prolong the work of the teacher. That is why it's important that both parties are committed to the cause. We are studying the situation on the ground, and definitely management will give the further directive if it should stay on, of which we don't think that it will drag. So I want to assure parents, I want to assure our nephews and nieces, our sons and daughters, to be rest assured. And I want to assure my good teachers that when we talk of if you can read and write, definitely you thank the teacher. They are the modelers of our future. And therefore, this issue shouldn't be an issue that will keep us out of the classroom. And whilst our leaders have agreed to sit around the table, we as members of the unions, will only have to keep our fingers crossed, listen to what is happening within the space, and at the end of the day, the communique which comes out is what we look out for. And I want to appeal to them. Once leadership has decided to engage government on this issue, I think we need to go back, do our normal duties as teachers, whilst we keep an close eye on all the interactions, and eventually see what the future holds for us. And that is what I'm expecting. We don't see it to be dragged for long. So the situation definitely will be contained. So that is the assurance we need to be rest assured that we'll get out of this.
Was this avoidable? Was it really avoidable? Because very often we wait for some of these things to degenerate into strike, where parents and the school pupils and parents are affected.
I believe you never anticipated this. We never anticipated that. Because we never anticipated that.
Obviously, they have concerns.
No, listen, once they are engaging, I think we can't delve deep into this. But just as you said, it's avoidable. The same thing that I feel it's avoidable. Where clarity should be sought, you seek the clarity from the appropriate quarters. Then that response is given. At where you are not satisfied, now you use the process in getting the satisfaction that you want. We never anticipated that, and all of a sudden it surprised. It came as a surprise on us. But once parties decide to sit around the table, then it tells you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
But why did it surprise you? Because they kept on complaining that, well, we do not want A, B, C, D. They did it for a while before they got to the stage where they had to declare the strike.
As to telling me in the media, you want this, I don't want that. You know, the ministry, it's a formal setting. And if you want your grievances to be addressed, you use the formal setting to do it. You remember when we go in for negotiations on salary issues, allowances issues, you know how the communique goes and how parties go around the table to talk, and at the end of the day, reach a compromise, and we move from that end. But you will attest to it that this didn't come same as we all know. We heard of it all of a sudden. That is why leadership felt that we need to invite them to the table. Immediately, that call started coming. Leadership started engaging and brought them onto the table for discussions to be made. Unfortunately, the discussion couldn't end on Friday, but today we are hopeful that all the interaction will end and normalcy will be restored in our various schools. And those who went to school, those one or two reasons they couldn't attend school today, I will urge them that whilst leadership is engaging, it will be prudent that we do hear to the call of our students. Be in the classroom and we keep an eye or monitor what the outcome will be. So we are confident today probably may be a good day to end the whole discussion on the appointment of the Acting Director General of Ghana Education Service.
Okay, so Blessed, you heard the Deputy Spokesperson of the Ministry of Education letting us in on what has been transpiring, the measures they have put in place, including calling the teacher unions for some kind of engagement. So the entire thing would be put to rest. And I can tell you that before we came here, we went to the Ministry of Employment, and then the teacher unions, their representatives, they had already arrived, and the meeting would be taking place in a short while. And as he indicated, they are confident that it wouldn't take long because they know what they have spoken about in the closet, and it would not take such a long time for them to deal with the matter. The teachers will return to their classroom, and then the students and the parents would also be happy. And so we are expecting, we are sure that we would be briefed at the end of the meeting on the outcome of it. Blessed.
On that, that's my colleague Richard Kujo Nyako giving us the latest from the Ghana Education Service headquarters. Of course, we're still monitoring that meeting, but at this point, I want to bring in Kofi Asare, who's the Executive Director for the Africa Education Watch. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And there we have it, the assurance from the Ghana Education Service indicating that the strike by all the three major teacher unions will be, quote, contained. In fact, there's a statement to that effect as well, also indicating that parents are advised to not to necessarily, and I'm paraphrasing, lose hope, but keep up hope, knowing that, of course, academic activities will resume as soon as possible. How is all of these developments coming to you?
Well, good afternoon to your cherished audience. It is heartwarming to note that such an assurance has been given. And it is my expectation that government will walk the talk. I believe that, as I said from day one, this issue can be resolved around the table. We can have a win-win around this situation. This is not a deadlock. This is not a problem that hasn't got a solution. I believe that once we keep the social dialogue channels, open between teachers and then their employers, let's encourage more consultation, and most importantly, let's build consensus on critical issues. Even if we don't achieve full consensus and we have a significant measure of consensus, I think we should be good to go on this. Disagreement between employers and employees are normal. That is why we have mechanisms to address such disagreements when they arise. And this is one of those that I believe that can be addressed around the table. Perhaps we shouldn't have waited for it to degenerate into an industrial action. But unfortunately, we find ourselves here. But the commitment that government is expressing should be enough to assure us that in the next 48 hours, the kids will be back to school.
But then, government is still silent on whether or not it will revoke the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa. And that's also a source of worry, isn't it? Knowing that that's the key concern of the three teacher unions. You either dismiss Dr. Nkansa or won't be back in the classrooms. Do you feel that government has an option, at least, going into the negotiation room?
I don't have that information that dismiss or remove Dr. Nkansa or we don't go to the classroom is the issue on the table. I'm not part of the negotiation, but information I picked up in a discussion with the NAT General Secretary this morning on TV3 did not indicate that, or did not suggest that it was strictly either you comply or we don't go to the classroom issue. If it was about putting in trend situations ahead of negotiations, then obviously there wouldn't be the need to negotiate. I think that it goes beyond that.
Yeah, but Kofi Asare, I'm sorry for cutting through, but if you have a group saying he's not qualified to be in office, I'm just wondering what else that could be interpreted to mean.
The group has made a case not against the person or the competency of the appointee. They have made their case that the understanding of the law is that the law must be interpreted, taking into cognizance the scheme of service. Okay, they've raised issues that are legitimate issues. So the only way to have a discussion around those issues is to sit around the table and discuss them. And that is what is currently taking place. That's why I'm saying that government, as the honorable member of the Education Select Committee said, government will have to explain to the employers and the employees how it came about the decision or what informed the decision to go with the appointee. And so once the Ministry of Employment and I believe the Ministry of Education and the teachers are already in a discussion which should have started, which I believe have started by now, we don't have to preempt the outcome of the discussion and suggest that it's a make or break or teachers have taken an entrenched position or government has taken one. I don't believe so. If they have taken an entrenched position, there won't be the need to negotiate.
Let's subject some of the, points they've raised to some sort of scrutiny. The issue about the qualification or otherwise of the new Director General, they seem to say that you can't bring in a banker, quote and unquote, to head the GES. there's a very cogent reason for which 3 teacher unions should be going on strike over.
They are cogent. All the reasons on the table to be discussed or negotiated are cogent. There's a cogent reason that says that you can't appoint someone who is not a professional teacher to come and lead teachers. Another cogent reason on the table is also that you can't determine who the appointer, that's the president, should appoint, especially when it is not explicitly stated in the law, where other appointees' qualifications are explicitly stated in the law, but this one is not. So everyone has a good reason. That's why I began by saying that everyone has a legitimate reason. The teachers have a legitimate cause to have a discussion with their employers. And that is the reason why they mentioned the word they are in negotiation. You don't negotiate when you take an entering position. So we shouldn't create the impression outside the negotiating table that they are in a deadlock even before they start negotiation, that they have taken an entering position. That is either my way or no way. That is not what leads parties into negotiation, and that is not my understanding of what the NAT president said this morning on TV3. He was actually optimistic that they will find a solution to the problem. But don't forget, teachers are on strike for about 4 reasons. One has to do with human resource progression. Even issues relating to the delay in the release of laptops that teachers have already been surcharged for and all that. So there are 4 or 5 reasons that teachers are striking over. It is not just the appointment of the acting director general. So when the NAT general secretary indicated that they hope that they will find a solution to the issue in their negotiation with government, which started Friday and will continue today, he gave the impression to all of us, including the stakeholder public, that it is not an issue of one having taken an entering position that it is either my way or no way, but rather it is a negotiation process.
Right.
So let us really address the issue as a negotiation
but be that as it may, the point about the revocation or withdrawal of services across campuses today is beginning to bite hard. If we don't come to a conclusion, some material terms on what it is that the future looks like for these parties involved in the negotiation, what then should we be looking at in terms of the decision to either withdraw or go back to the classrooms? What would you urge the teachers to do? Go back immediately?
It's unfortunate in the first place that there's a strike. I keep saying that the least any stakeholder will invite within the space is a strike, because we have a very, very strict, constricted academic calendar that was derailed by COVID. We are now reopening school in early January instead of September. Other countries in the sub-region are still reopening in September and October. So we are behind in terms of academic calendar, and we need to make as much as possible good use of time so that we can gradually make amends and then come back to our September reopening, September-August academic calendar. Now, if that is our strategy in the medium term, then having strikes shouldn't be one of the issues that we should be engaging at all. And so it's actually unfortunate that both government and the teachers have not been able to manage the situation for it to generate into a strike. But I have the assurance of the leadership of the ministry, education and labor, and also the teacher unions, that both are committed to put the interest of the children, ahead of all other interests. I don't see the strike, moving beyond this week. I will be surprised if this issue is not resolved, by midweek. I believe that the issue can be resolved, and I believe in the commitment of both parties not to take entering position, but to find a win-win situation to the situation we find ourselves in, so that our basic schools can reopen as much as possible for academic work to continue.
All right then, Kofi Asari's Executive Director for Africa Education Watch. Thank you for joining us here on the polls. We'll keep our eyes on the negotiations going on at the Employment and Labour Relations Ministry. But there's another looming danger for government. Almost all tiers of the academic sector are grinding slowly to a halt. This time around, two major staff associations at 46 colleges of education across the country have also threatened to lay down their tools if government does not prioritize their welfare. The groups comprise the Colleges of Education Teachers Association, CTAG, and also the Colleges of Education Non-Teaching Staff Association of Ghana, CENTSAG. So these groups claim that they are disappointed at, quote, the way government has handled issues affecting their welfare, especially of staff in the colleges of education. Joining us via Zoom is Obinhima, who happens to be the president for CTAG. Prince, thank you for joining us here on the Pulse. So let's start off from the basis, the point that you raised, that government is, quote unquote, not taking your welfare seriously. In what sense are you making these claims? It appears we're having some challenges there. We'll reconnect with Prince Obinhima shortly, who's president of the CTAG, speaking on behalf of the coalition. Of course, there's a lot more also happening, as I was indicating earlier, because the TUTAG is also indicating that it may be revoking or withdrawing its services. And we can take a listen to some of the leadership of the Kumasi Technical University chapter of the Technical University Teachers Association.
He's a teacher, and he's still a teacher. He would come back after his secondment. He will be back to continue his work. Like you heard me say, he's into educational management and training. He has a private place where he himself, with other colleagues, have been providing educational training to many other people. So I believe he is more of a teacher than a banker, as maybe could be said by many. And his experience is very rich. As we have said, I mean, it's not just a matter of chance. You can count on his quality, okay, to deliver on any mandate that is given. And I believe there are many people, but for him to also have reached that level is an evidence of his caliber. Yeah.
And of course, these are some of the concerns emanating from the education front. Of course, the latest coming through from CTAG and CENTSAG, they are asking that, of course, government would have to address issues relating to their welfare on campus, a reason for which they are threatening to revoke and actually withdraw their services on campus. Prince Obinhima is president of CTAG, joins us via phone now. Thank you, sir, for your time. So when are you finally laying down your tools? It's not as though I'm hoping that that's what you do, but when do you decide to, when are you planning to do that?
We're planning to do that 5 days from today if we don't get any positive response from government.
And then you say that government is not paying attention to your welfare. When you say your welfare is not being, catered for, in what sense are you making all of these claims?
Our welfare issues, we are particularly talking about chiefly the conditions of service, how we have to survive and the compensation we have to get for the work that we do. People like you and other people in the media space should be aware of our concerns. We are talking about we having to exist on expired conditions of service, and we having to engage in August 2021 to date. And the non-teaching staff are concerned about this time around because what we negotiate has direct consequence of what they also get at the end of the day. So we remaining on the bridge for that long means that they are not also going to even get a chance to negotiate or have anything at all at the end of the day. So you look at the economic situation, how biting the economic condition is at the moment, and the fact that we have no conditions of service, the fact that the non-teaching staff, they have other issues. People who even have first degrees and they have to be placed on 17 high, which is agreed on by the Fair Wages are being told to wait till January 2023. So how do they survive from this time after January 23? That is why we have put our things together. The teaching staff and the non-teaching staff who work so hard, the non-teaching staff, to complement the efforts of the teachers in producing teachers for the nation's first cycle institutions. We're saying that we give ourselves up to Friday. So if by Friday it's not done, then we'll have no option than to, as it were, call it quits.
And then you're doing this jointly together with the non-teaching staff in the various colleges of education. Why are they also joining? Do they have similar concerns just as yours, or perhaps they have a unique case?
Exactly so. Particularly when we're talking about the fact that for now we are thinking together and we're swimming together. What you give us is what we base on, or we use as the yardstick to also determine what has to be given them. So if we delay, if we remain on the bridge for that long, what it means is that they also have to remain without any form of conditions of service. And they have issues, more critical or equally critical as ours. So that is why we're saying that we're working together this time around. Government, listen to us both, or you face our, what have you.
Prince Benghima is president of CTAC, joining us here on the Pulse. We're grateful for your time. Let's take you now to Parliament because this week the House will take a crucial vote to determine the fate of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on the vote of censure filed by NDC MPs in the House. The debate and vote on the censure motion will be taken on Thursday following the expiration of the 7-day notice. And the Constitution obviously mandates a Speaker to act. And speaking to journalists, Deputy Minority Whip Ahmed Ibrahim indicated that all NDC MPs have been instructed not to miss seatings in order to get the required number.
The motion of censure is slated to be moved on Thursday, the 10th of November 2022. And the Majority Chief, the Honorable Mutaka Mubarak, has sounded a note of caution to all minority MPs that all the 136 MPs must be in the chamber on Thursday, 2022. So any member who may absent himself from the chamber is at his own risk. And bear in mind that the whole Ghana is interested in this motion. The Minister of Finance himself is duly served to come and open his defense on Thursday. So everybody must be prepared that on Thursday, the motion of censure is going to be moved, and the motion stands in the name of the Honorable Minority Leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, and Honorable Minority Chief, Honorable Mutaka Mubarak. So what we are to do is to make sure that as the first Deputy Minority Whip, my boss is not here, so I'm using this medium to whip our members to the chamber on Thursday. Our constituents are interested in this motion. The majority MPs, all the 137 majority MPs, are also saying that the motion to censure Ken Ofori-Atta is a collective responsibility. So now we were all doing press conferences. The ball is set and is in our court. On Thursday, whether we want Ken Ofori-Atta to be impeached or to be censured, the opportunity is being given to us by the Right Honorable Speaker. In my 14-year stay in this House, this is the first time a motion of censure is going to be moved in the chamber. And this is the first time the minister will be given the opportunity to come and open his defense. Me, if it were to be me, I don't think I will wait to come and be opening some defense, because if you look at the motion itself, it has been advertised with some of the parliamentary questions that the minister came to answer as some of the evidence that we are serving to the generality of Ghanaians. The minister's company, Data Bank, benefiting from some of the loans that he's been getting, the commissions and all those things. They are all here. He came to answer the question on the floor. So we are waiting to see as to whether Thursday he's coming to repeat the same thing.
And for the vote of censure to be secured, 183 MPs must vote for it, with the minority having only 136 MPs. 46 NPP MPs must join them. Ahmed Ibrahim believes that the NPP MPs will not go against their call to get the finance minister sacked and will vote to remove him.
The Constitution is supreme. And don't forget, the House has already been poisoned by allegations upon allegations. So whether there are substance in those allegations or not, all are going to be proved on Thursday. And we are duty bearers. We are the leaders of the country. You cannot be making allegations upon allegations, lamentations upon lamentations. We must move from the Old Testament into the New Testament. We must walk the talk. They staged a press conference, a group of 95. Is the president superior to the Constitution? The Constitution is supreme. And the Constitution says that once the motion has been received by the Speaker, he must work, Article 82.3, he must work upon it. It must be debated and passed within 14 days. So the Speaker cannot, the President pleading cannot supersede the supremacy of the Constitution. And therefore, we have sworn an oath to make sure that we defend the 1992 Constitution. So on Thursday, the Haruna Idrisu and Motaka motion is going to be moved. It will be put into vote. What we are looking for from our side is that all the 136 minority MPs, we must register our 136. When those allegations came, you didn't hear any minority names inside. So as to whether the majority are going to walk the talk to make sure that the motion, that there is a press conference that is staged, that Ken Oforata must go, they still stand by it. It's over to them. But I strongly believe that per the information and the signals I'm picking this morning, they are still going to walk the talk. And the best thing for the president and the minister to do would have been there for the Minister for Finance to say that enough is enough. After all, he's the longest serving finance minister.
Well, so on what basis is minority laying claim and remaining confident that this motion will be sustained by the House? Joining us in studio is Kweku Asante, our parliamentary correspondent. And Kweku, let's quickly go through the demands and what it is that we're getting from the minority as the grounds on which they will be pushing for that motion to be sustained by the House.
So, Blessed, there are about 7 of them, mainly having to do with some allegations they made against the finance minister about conflict of interest regarding his data bank, the company he co-founded, and their transaction with government. That is one of the key pillars that the minority is anchoring this motion on. They are also raising significant concerns about the current economic challenges. We've heard about legal scholars who have said that the current challenges with the economy is not enough basis to seek to remove a finance minister. Well, that is part of the reasons why the minority is moving this motion. They're also saying that the minister is very much incompetent and that if he's left to still handle the economy, by the end of the year, everything would have collapsed. So we can hear Ahmed Ibrahim recounting the general positions why they think that the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, must go.
The G95, we don't have the luxury of time. And where we are, even if you listen to the speaker, that the mere slating of the motion and advertising the motion that Ghanaia's parliament has taken a move to censure the Minister for Finance alone, the cedi is appreciating against the dollar. It used to be the reverse was the case before. So clearly, Ghanaians are not just saying we don't want the finance minister. But what we are saying is that where we are now, this finance minister cannot play the game. And I strongly believe you are asking, should we not be able to garner all the votes, 183 votes, to make sure that the minister goes? What next? There is no constitutional provision which says that the motion must be slated once. We are saying that the minister has failed. And if the president and the majority side relent on their mandate and the minister is still maintained, when the economy continues to be in crisis, we can't keep on blaming Russia, Ukraine. Our finance minister is not Putin. Neither is our finance minister Zelensky. And we cannot be blaming Russia, Ukraine. We must domesticate our effort. But Ken Ofori-Atta, cannot do that. So the earlier we open the gate for him to go, the better. And that is why we still stand by our motion that no matter how dangerous the House is present, the motion will be moved on Thursday. And all the 136 minority MPs are going to be there. And we are going to move our motion, vote for the motion to make sure. This is going to be live telecast. So if on that day you are not in your seat, it's you and your constituency. And I strongly believe that my colleagues on the minority side, we are going to be there.
So let's do some analysis on the figures. 136 MPs on the side of the NDC. They need over 40 more?
They need about 47 from the majority side. That should be easy if the majority MPs who address the new conference saying that Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta must be sacked are willing to vote with them.
Okay, initially that was about 80 in all. So 80. So assuming without admitting that all of these 80 MPs haven't changed their minds,
and they vote with the minority,
the assumption is that this motion will go through because they would have far in excess of the 44
or 47 that they need. Indeed, the majority leader himself has been speaking. He says that the position that was taken by those 80 MPs is just now not their position. It's now the entire position of the entire caucus. So that issue runs deep. And if that is anything to go by, the assumption is that that motion is going to succeed. The minority are able to get these NPP MPs to join them. The motion will succeed. But there are technicalities. The president met the NPP MPs, discussed with them and said that, hold on, let Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta finish the presentation of the 2022 budget. Let him conclude negotiations with the IMF. Then we can talk. So if that is anything to go by, that the party has now accepted that position, then the NDC is going to have a hard time trying to get these numbers. But let's be aware that this vote of censure is by secret. Nobody knows anyone's vote, right. So anything can happen.
So let's talk about the parliamentary procedures itself. What's expected to happen on that day?
So when the motion was filed, a 7-day notice was expected to be granted. 7-day sittings has already elapsed tomorrow. So tomorrow will be the last day for that 7-day notice. Right. On Wednesday, ordinarily, the motion can be moved. But the indication we are getting from the majority is that they want to do that on Thursday. So on Thursday, whatever business it is that is there in the House, they can transact. But the minority, the Haruna Idrisu, and his chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, will now move the motion. When they move the motion, the finance minister is expected to be heading his defense because the minority would have to canvass a certain argument in support of why they want Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to be removed from office. The finance minister himself may appear or elect a lawyer or some other person, an expert of his choice, to do so representation on his behalf. There have been questions as to whether or not a lawyer, who is not a member of parliament, can be allowed on the floor of the House to make any such point. I'm sure on Thursday, those positions...
And beyond that as well, there's the question also about the minister himself and as to whether or not after the passage of the motion, that would then mean that he needs to leave office automatically.
So after that motion, the president, after that motion is passed and a resolution thereof, the president, according to the constitution, may decide to revoke the appointment of the minister, right? It is not compulsory. But the argument has been that if 183 MPs in parliament say we don't want something, and the president is stubborn and does not sack that minister, his business is going to suffer. Because 183 means some members of the majority joining some members of the majority, NPP MPs, joining the minority. I don't think any president will want to do that. But that is still open out there. If on Thursday, this motion succeeds.
And we've seen some of the arguments from Alexander Venyumakin, for instance, on the constitutional nature of how we're dealing with this matter.
Indeed, he has been raising some consistent issues with how the motion has been advertised on the other paper. He raised the first concern. The speaker overruled him. He made a second one the next day when the Speaker of Parliament himself, Abba Bagbin, was not there, had traveled. The Deputy Speaker refused to grant him those and said that the Speaker had already ruled on that and that if he wanted to challenge it, he knew how to do so by substantive motion. So it appears as though that leg is gone. The Speaker of Parliament himself is not around. He's expected to return to the country on Wednesday. If he's back on Wednesday, it means on Thursday he will be in the chair, and I'm certain some constitutional issues will be raised on the preliminary basis, after which the vote will now be taken, a debate from both sides, and whether or not the finance minister brings in some lawyers or some experts to come and argue his case. But it's going to be very interesting on Thursday to see how that pan out and whether or not this secret vote will lead to the finance minister losing his job.
He's 63 today.
He's 63 today. Happy birthday to Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta.
Well, I wasn't expecting that from Kweku Asante, but that's our parliamentary correspondent giving us the very latest on the motion unfolding in Parliament. You're watching the polls on the JoyNews channel. When we return, we have some special conversations coming your way. Please stay. To the polls. Now, the country and the people have survived the turbulent economic conditions over the years. Now, thanks to, in part, the church, which has brought hope and inspiration in the face of deep-rooted challenges. Well, they've also kept us on our toes, pointing to us the ills of society and helping us address them. One of the churches we're talking about has been doing that for 175 years. I'm talking about the Evangelical Presbyterian Church. To mark this milestone, they'll be holding a number of activities to drum home the need for Ghanaians to contribute to their quota in navigating the current economic situation. So guess what? We have Reverend Dr. Setri Nyomi, immediate past General Secretary of the World Communion of Reformed Churches and spokesperson for the EPCG 175 years anniversary committee, joining us in studio. And it's a good time to be talking to you, Reverend. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
polls.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and of course, let me say, first of all, say congratulations to the EP Church. You've done quite a lot in education, in the spiritual lives of many Ghanaians. You've done quite a lot, 175 years. But then what would you say is that story of the EP Church from its start to where we are today here in Ghana?
Yes. From the very beginning in 1847 when the church came, and indeed we should say that it's not only the effort of the missionaries, but also the efforts of the chiefs and people who invited the missionaries to come. So the Peking nation invited the church to come, and from that very beginning, the church saw itself as contributing to the lives of the people in terms of bringing the gospel, of course, but also bringing education,
right,
which is a very key item in the development of any nation. Helping in the healthcare, helping in agricultural extension stations, which was meant to boost the agricultural production. All these are contributing to the lives of the people. In terms of education, starting from the Volta region, but now all over the country, the EP Church has schools from the basic level to the tertiary level. We do have the AP University College. Until the AP University College came, we had training college, and we also have many secondary schools. And indeed, in the north, we saw also that we needed to break whatever issues are there,
right,
which are challenges. And so Bimbila Training College is one of those as well. So we have been very much involved in being partners in development.
But now you are 175, and as part of the reflections, you're reflecting on your achievements and also trying to look at the way forward.
Yes.
Why so?
Yes, indeed. And you missed one of them, the challenges.
Yes,
because
we need to talk about the challenges too.
Indeed, for any human being or any institution, if we are to continue making an impact, we need to look back. Anyone who doesn't look back at its history is doomed to fail again. But indeed, in that assessment, we've been able to mark the achievements that we've had. And yes, some of the things I've listed are some of those. The people who have passed through our educational institutions and what they have contributed to the nation are some of those. And yes, we are not just supposed to celebrate those and feel that we have made these achievements and that's it. We need to map how we have been challenged also and to see what we learned from those challenges. And we have learned a lot. And that helps us shape the fact that we want even more today to be very sharp in the renewal of our churches, in the renewal of our nation, in contributing to the development of our nation, in being a voice for justice in this nation.
And now we're in a peculiar situation. Everybody knows about it, that there's an economic crisis confronting the nation. If you look at the contribution of the church, and if not necessarily the EP Church, but Christendom in general, the claim is that you need to do a lot more in supporting the nation. And I guess that's where we need to also reflect on the EP story.
Yes.
What has been the contribution from the church in improving economic situation as well?
Yes. Yeah, to start with, before even the contributions we've made in improving, being part of articulating the cries of the people. The church often, whether it's the EP Church or any other church, often is a place where people come crying when we are faced with challenges, and economic challenges are what we are talking about right now. We see the people, we pray with them, we ensure that where there is help that we can give, we are giving, so that some people don't fall between the cracks. So that's the first calling that we have. But we have also asked ourselves what concrete things we could do to alleviate the situation. I'll mention one of the things in the past and one of the things in the present. In the past, for example, when the whole area has been faced with major water problems, it is the EP Church that ensured that there was a water tanker to supply, not only to church communities, but to supply water to the different areas. And so today we can also say that when we are faced with very difficult financial situations, the church has been at the forefront of asking. Members of the church include economists. They include business people. They include others who can play a role. And yes, the message from our pulpits, as well as the networking we have within ourselves, are ensuring that we are able to contribute something. And again, it comes to water again. Realizing that we need to be doing something to support. The EP Church just inaugurated its water plant in Chito just a couple of months ago as a way of indicating to people in and outside the church, we need to find entrepreneurial opportunities in order to contribute to the economy. Unless we are ensuring that we are employing Ghanaians, the unemployment situation will be as it is.
And some also feel this is an opportune moment to also rekindle the spirit of patriotism amongst your church members as well. Because if you look at the statistics, over 70% of the Ghanaian population Christian. So obviously people who serve in public office, people who serve the nation, majority of them obviously come from the church, and most of them, we should say, should be coming from the EP Church as well. How are you using this anniversary to also drive that spirit in them?
Yes. In fact, this anniversary is coming at a time that the EP Church has gotten the theme, "Revive us again, O Lord." And by that we're saying God should revive us as church, but also to be effective citizens and light and salt of the places that we are found in. And that message is also a message of patriotism. If we are revived, then whether we are in government or in some profession somewhere or in the market somewhere, the thoughts would not be, what is in it for me? But what is in it for the nation? How can God use me and my talents and my thoughts and my faith to build this nation? Because God has made us Ghanaians for a reason. He didn't make us citizens of any other country. And we owe it as gratitude to God to be able to do whatever we are called to do in a way that builds our nation. So our messages from the pulpits, our messages as we engage member churches include indeed making that patriotism felt.
And we'll be talking about perhaps the day, the activities that you'll be rolling out, but I also want to take your thoughts on some of the other issues happening and bordering on national development. For instance, the issue about illegal mining. It's come up. We've seen some pastors, some preachers and leaders of the Christian community tour some of the illegal mining sites. And the verdict is that as a nation we're sick, we need revival, just as you're also indicating here. For the EP Church, how do you feel we could, positively or conclusively deal with the issue of illegal mining, which is confronting us now?
Yeah, to leave no stone unturned to expose it, to the point of exposing people who are behind it. Because indeed, water is basic.
Right.
If our water bodies are being polluted for the sake of the pockets of a few, we should say very clearly how sinful and how wrong this is. And yes, when our colleagues went to those places the other day, I've seen comments on the social media.
You've seen that as well, the prayer.
Yes, as if going to pray there was wrong. I beg to differ. It's indeed.
You don't feel it was wrong? Some say, practically, we should be dealing with those who are engaged in that.
For us as Christians, going there to say we are there to pray for this to stop is the beginning. And those very church leaders who went have taken more steps after that. And so when social media makes it sound as if that's the only thing the church is doing, then I'm sorry they didn't wait to see the whole story.
Right.
Until today, they continue to work to expose. They have engaged government, and we continue to do so as a people. And our stand is we should ensure that even if there are big names behind these, they need to be exposed. We don't need impunity in this country anymore. We need for the truth to come out so that we can arrest that. The other thing is it's our very people in churches who may own cocoa farms, who may own some other productive avenues of making money, but because they don't see it as productive,
they're losing it.
They are selling them off or turning them into gold mining fields.
The belief is we can never end illegal mining. That's a belief of some. Yes. We believe we can do something about it. What's your take on it?
I believe we can do something about it. First, if there's political will, we could. Our role as churches is to challenge those who have the political power to develop the will to end it, which is what we are in the process of doing. Not only the EP Church, the EP Church is doing that, the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, the Methodist Church, all are in the process of doing that, of ensuring that that political will is developed. But to also use every opportunity we get to speak against it. And if any is involved in our member churches, we also have that responsibility to shame them into knowing it is sinful.
Okay, well, we need to be wrapping up. We've seen some activities put in place by the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. The Orthodox churches are also doing same week for fasting and prayer for the nation to deal with illegal mining. I'm just wondering if it's part of the 175 anniversary of the EP Church, you're devoting a portion of that to praying for our lands to be healed.
Yes, we are, but while we've noted that the illegal mining, the galamsey, is a major problem, we've also noted that it's not the only problem. Our current economic challenges are broader than that. So we are both praying for that and also drawing attention to the fact that those who are called to serve the nation should be serving the nation and not themselves or not any political party. The church is not in to support this party or that party, but to draw attention to what is good for the nation, what God is calling us to do to make this nation great and strong, stronger than it currently is. And if it is, then we'll be working towards
And since the church is concerned about the economy, I'm sure that many of your church members are lamenting as well. So it's part of the reason why you're championing that. If there's anything leadership should be very much considerate about in tackling the challenge, what would be the message of the church to leadership?
Yes, yeah. One of the things that we want to see as a nation is that those who hold the political power as well as the economic gurus of this nation should be able to demonstrate to us that they know where things have gone wrong, they know what needs to be done, and they are themselves making the sacrifices in that direction. And we will continue to challenge the powers that be in that direction. We ourselves are also indicating that within our own structures, we need to set the example. And the EP Church is doing that.
Let's wrap up with the series of activities. When is it starting, and what are we to expect?
We started earlier this year. We had a formal launching in July. But this Wednesday is a major activity. When the missionaries started the journey towards the beginning of the church, they started in Christianborg Castle, Osu.
Right.
So we have a float that is going from Osu to Peki Blengo.
Are you
Wednesday.
walking there?
Well, it's a float, so most people go on a track. But there will be cars following it. Right. Also, members of the church will be meeting it at various points on the way. Right. So that's one activity. A major activity is this Saturday in Peki Blengo. There will be a Durbar of chiefs and people, led by the king of the Pekis. And that's, again, another milestone. Right. During next week, there will be a number of activities that will engage people both in Peki and in Ho, where our head office is. Right. The climax will be the Thanksgiving service on the 20th of November, also in Peki. So we hope many will join us, EP, non-EP. This is for the nation of Ghana. This is not just for EP.
And I'm interested in seeing how the float would work out, because it promises to be exciting.
You are invited.
So, Reverend Dog, thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. We're grateful for your time. And of course, you're watching The Pulse. Don't forget that we'll bring you some more stories after this break. And you're welcome back. The Ghana Medical Association has proposed to government to develop and implement location-specific incentive packages in order to attract doctors to underpreserved or represented areas in the country. Now, according to the Ghana Medical Association, the distribution of doctors throughout the country shows that about 91% of doctors are concentrated in 5 regions: the Greater Accra, Central, Northern, and Volta regions. This does not represent a fair doctor to population ratio, something the Ghana Medical Association believes has to change. They have been issuing a communique at the end of the 64th Annual General Conference of the Ghana Medical Association held at Bolgatanga in the Upper East region. President of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Frank Sripo, has been explaining the position of the group.
Ghana has made tremendous gains in the doctor to population ratio from 1 to 17,899 in 2005 to 1 is to 6,500 in 2020. However, these do not reflect in the distribution of doctors in the country. 42% of all doctors are in the nation's capital, Accra. About 81% of all doctors are concentrated in 5 regions: Greater Accra, Ashanti, Central, Northern, and Volta regions. It will interest you to note that most of these regions have medical schools. So no wonder they have a large concentration of doctors. The Upper East region, where we find ourselves now, currently has only about 30 doctors actively providing service to over 1.3 million population, with an estimated doctors to population ratio of 1:43,000. The reasons include, but not limited to, the following. 1. The poor working conditions in most rural and suburban areas, conflicts and instability, inadequate or poorly equipped health facilities, poor infrastructure and lack of social amenities, the lack of clearly defined career progression path for doctors who opt to accept postings to deprive districts, accelerated immigration of doctors to well-developed countries in search of better working conditions, remunerations and other opportunities, and lack of deliberate policy initiative to attract and retain doctors in underserved areas by the state. To address the maldistribution of medical doctors, the GMA proposes that the Ministry of Health must empower and support its agencies to develop and implement location-specific incentive packages, decentralize postgraduate medical education, ensure the provision of accommodation for doctors in underserved communities, create further educational opportunities, improve and properly equip health facilities in these areas, among others. Meanwhile, the Ghana Medical Association also appeals to its members to accept postings to these underserved areas.
And the Ghana Medical Association also wants government to take measures to address the age-old problem of doctors migrating from the country in search of greener pastures, beginning with better conditions of service and improved remuneration for doctors.
Immigration of medical doctors from Ghana is an age-old problem that continues to deplete the country of this much-needed human resource. In recent times, there have been a surge in the number of health workers, including medical doctors, leaving the country. The reasons for immigration of medical doctors seems to vary with time. A recent survey of 360 doctors currently practicing in Ghana showed that about 90% have ever considered leaving the country to move to more developed countries. The reasons for which doctors leave Ghana include the search for better income, improved working and living conditions, better life and schools for their children, and opportunities for further education. The Ghana Medical Association calls on government to, as a matter of urgency, address underlying factors to help minimize the rate of immigration of medical doctors and other health workers. What we are saying is that our salaries keep depreciating by the day, and I was paid better as a house officer in terms of the value of my money than now as a specialist. So it tells you that we have to find a solution to that problem. And one of the solutions is that we should begin to peg our allowances against the dollar, so that once that happens, at least.
And you're still watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We are still keeping an eye on the negotiations going on at the Employment and Labour Relations Ministry over the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa, who happens to be the Director General of the Ghana Education Service. 3 labour unions, mainly in the education sector, have withdrawn their services owing to his appointment. There are other concerns pushing government to engage the groups today. Let's cross over now to the Employment and Labour Relations Ministry, where my colleague Richard Kojo-Nyako is joining us from. Richard, so I can see that, yes, indeed, the talks are far from over, but what can you report in terms of how the engagement started today? And is it looking like, I mean, we may have some agreements at the end of the day?
Well, so Blazer, thank you very much. So a short while ago, some of them came out. They were beaming with smiles. We don't know really what transpired in there before they came out. So I saw the Minister of Education, Dr. Yaweduchum. I also saw the Employment and Labour Relations Minister, and then the Deputy, Rekubrobe, and then the NAT President, the NAGRAD president, and other representatives from the other parties that are in this case. And I can tell you that it's really a crucial meeting, because you know that the strike that has been called by the teacher unions is really has started affecting the students, and especially parents as well, because they send their kids to school. They do not know whether the students or the school pupils will be in school, and so some of them are contemplating of not even sending their kids to school tomorrow. This morning we hit some of the schools, and they indicated to us that, in fact, it's really a dire situation. While it's not all the teachers that are not in the classroom, some have really adhered to the directive from the teacher unions. Others too are adamant. They say that, well, they can't be bothered. The strike shouldn't have been called in the first place. So it's really a big issue for the pupils. We interacted with them, and across the country, everyone is feeling the pinch, and that is why the GES is currently assuring parents and then the school pupils that this meeting that they are having, they are hopeful that it will not travel beyond the middle of the week. By Wednesday, they hope that they will bring a closure to the end of this meeting, and so they are confident. And we are all waiting. Many of the press that are also here, they are eagerly waiting for the outcome of the meeting between the Ministry of Labor and then the Ministry of Education, plus the teacher unions that are currently locked out in this meeting. So, Blessed, that is currently what is transpiring here. We are nosing around to hear what the good news would be, and I'm not really sure whether it's a make or break meeting that they are going to do. We are confident that at the end of the day, Ghana will be the happier for the outcome of the meeting.
It's interested in the number of persons representing the groups. We may not have the firm figure, but do we know about the groups going into this meeting? Is it beyond the 3 unions going on strike?
So first of all, the negotiation started with the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service. Now it's escalated to the Ministry of Labor because now there is a strike involved in this. And so the people that we have here, we've seen the substantive Minister of Education, Dr. Osei Educhim himself, attending this meeting. We also see the Minister for Labor Relations, Professor Jambalfoy, is also in this meeting, plus the Deputy. Now, the teacher unions that are also involved in this, I've seen the NAT president, I've also seen the NAGRAT president, plus other stakeholders that are also part of this meeting that hold or play a crucial role in this meeting. And so these are the people that are represented, and I'm sure that all the teacher unions are here and fairly represented. We are just hoping for a good outcome that will be beneficial to the schools in Ghana.
Ghana Education Service, where they're giving you assurances that they will be able to contain the situation. In your interaction with the PRO, did you get a sense of whether or not the man at the center of this, Dr. Eric Nkansa, is beginning to get worried about some of these demands coming through?
Well, so many have expressed same sentiment that, well, this man at the center of the entire thing should be a worried man, but I did not get that indication when I spoke with the Deputy PRO of the Ghana Education Service. In fact, he was confident that they have got some cuts that they will be putting on the table when the meeting starts, and they are confident that it's going to be a win-win situation. It's not something that any of the parties, he believes, has taking an entrenched position. And so judging from his demeanor, judging from the assurances that he gave, and he told us that he's confident that we may not be traveling beyond the middle of the week for a resolution or an amicable resolution to this matter. And so they are confident. And I believe that they might have they may have spoken behind the scenes. They have judged before coming to this meeting. And they were not even expecting that the meeting would travel this long. But the meeting is about 2 hours old, and we are still expecting them to finish, and then we would be we will be bringing to our viewers the outcome of this meeting.
But what do you see in terms of the cordiality or otherwise between the officials and the government side? Initially, when the of course deadline was given, the ultimatum was given, the groups did not seem to be, backing down on that. Do you get a sense that given today's engagement, the atmosphere is a bit more cordial in that indeed they'll be able to secure something at the end of the day?
So, Blessed, I can tell you what, the atmosphere is not that charged. It is not that tensed, because they gathered here before the meeting. They were sharing jokes, they were laughing, they were interacting, they were doing a lot of things that indicated or suggested that there is some kind of discussion that has gone beyond, behind the scenes, that the outcome might not be that rigid so as to prolong the strike that has been called. And so if you look at the demeanor, how the two parties, the Ministry of Employment Labor Relations, the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education is also herein represented, and all of that, I sense and I have a feeling that it's not going to be a make or break, because one of the parties is advocating that the person that has been appointed does not qualify. If they look at their scheme of things from 1974 to date, any person that has been appointed, was a truly or a thoroughbred educationist that has traveled through the mill. The other party on the side of government says that, we are the appointing authorities. We decide who we appoint, and we have the power. But at the end of the day, they hope that they will come to a middle ground that will be, satisfactory to both of them.
Finally, what have you got to say about other demands that we're hearing that may be featuring on the table, not necessarily connected to the appointment of Dr. Nkansa? We also are hearing that the teacher unions are making some more demands.
Well, so we initially were picking that, and we wanted more from the teacher unions before the meeting started, but they said that they didn't want to preempt whatever the discussions may be when they went into that meeting, and so they are waiting. We should wait fervently that when they are done with the meeting, a briefing would be done that will entail that will go beyond just calling out of the strike or extending or continuing with the strike, and then bringing on board some of these issues that they are adding to the negotiations or the meetings that they have just that they are currently in.
Sorry, Council.
Well, so that's my colleague, Richard Kojonyako, giving us the latest from the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations. But we'll still keep our eyes on the negotiations and definitely bring you some updates. But for now, let's talk about the peace and security of the country. The United Nations is urging the government and the people of Ghana not to take its democratic stability and peace for granted. The country has successfully held general elections and has gained an accolade of being a beacon of democracy in Africa. However, given the recent military takeovers in West Africa, including in neighboring Burkina Faso, and a sharp rise in protests across the country, the UN is worried that the country's peace could be in jeopardy. Speaking on the Foreign Affairs, Charles Abani indicates that, of course, some key steps must be taken to instill the principles of good governance and transparency.
The third area is on durable peace. Both in Ghana and sub-regionally. Right. Ghana has a strong history of being a peaceful nation, but it's surrounded by a lot of conflict at the moment.
You're concerned about that?
In all areas, from the Sahel, and even, as we know, the Gulf of Guinea has some of the highest rates of piracy in the world, bar none. And so working on peace and security is important. And if you look at the foundational principles of the United Nations, it's peace, security, and development, right? And we know that without peace, actually, there is no development.
The belief is we should be supporting democratic institutions just to uphold and to keep up the morale just as we move on, because what we see is that democracy appears to be in recession in the West African sub-region. Do you share the same view?
Of course we do. Clearly we've had 3 coups and 3 changes of government undemocratically in the sub-region. And the President of Ghana has done a good job in terms of trying to rally the forces when he was chair of ECOWAS, and continues to push that. But we know that at the center of progress, I call governance, good governance, I call it the fluid that runs in the pipes, if you like, the grease. Right. Because without it, nothing will happen. And we see rises in protests when injustice, unfairness, inequity seems to be at its highest. And so for us, governance, transparency, accountability, these are threads that run through everything that the UN does. Ghana, like with being a peaceful country, also has an enviable track record on the continent around elections. The one thing I often say to Ghanaians is, please don't take this for granted. We have seen in many other countries, even within this sub-region, what taking peace for granted ends up meaning.
And now the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology and its officials have re-emphasized the need to develop a more comprehensive measure to address climate challenges. The Chief Director at the Ministry has been speaking to JoyNews.
In the next foreseeable future, we would still have to depend to a large extent on petroleum, especially oil and gas. The discussions on lost assets and its effect on developing countries are being discussed, and it is still at the infant stages. If many of us would be able to move away from this product, it will surely take some few more years. For that matter, many African countries, including Ghana, may continue to explore the petroleum in the foreseeable future to meet its urgent developmental needs. It is therefore highly essential and critical that we come together as a team with common interests, mindset, and agenda to examine the major environmental changes associated with petroleum exploration, including oil spills, gas flaring, and all other attributes to the mining that affect or contribute to climate impacts, and design good measures and solutions to avoid them or minimize their occurrence. It is for this reason that the government of Ghana supports entirely what the GIWACA project is formulated to do, and for your meeting here today that seriously seeks to look at strengthening institutional capacity in preparedness and responses to oil spills. It is very essential and a noble objective to design a project that aims at seeking interventions to address possible oil spills and ensuring readiness and preparedness to respond to any such accidents. Historical events of oil spill are still fresh in our minds, as though they occurred just yesterday. And I'm referring to the Deepwater Horizon spill in 2010 that occurred in the Gulf of Mexico, with its devastating effects on the ecosystems of the Gulf area. I am happy to hear from the earlier speakers that our accident levels have improved. Events leading to and after the Deepwater Horizon are also reminders that oil spills can happen anytime if nations relax their watch, response, and responsiveness. Therefore, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we are aware that accidents are accidents, and as such, despite all efforts and preventive systems, we are still likely to have some accidents. It is important that this meeting is seeking to build our capacity to avoid disasters that may happen in the course of doing our work.
And organizers of the Kumiprako Reloaded demonstration over the weekend were expecting a very huge crowd to join them, express their concerns over what they say is the economic crisis the country is facing. Though the numbers were not as they expected, the leaders of the demonstration have stated their objective was achieved. So we ask, were you part of the demonstration, especially if you are, and of course we've been on the streets finding out some answers of what some Ghanaians think about the demonstration over the weekend.
I wasn't in Accra when the demonstration was going on. If I was, I would join. I would have ensured that I make my concerns known because the cost of living has become unbearable.
Demonstration. you're complaining.
I knew about the demonstration, but I couldn't partake because my knee aches, and that didn't permit me.
Midnight, into minya dia meti mi echi, enu omo echi sa.
Me ko bi ba man kwachi sa because na mi wo bibi kakra ye eso se me ye manya.
I am happy I was part of the demonstration because I think the president has simply refused to listen to our concerns.
In fact, Papa, solid no be mad because he can't afford your bread.
Demonstration no more in crowd. Me, I see the kind of we are not angry enough.
I couldn't join the demonstration because I wasn't in the capital. But I am happy people could join on my behalf.
Me visitor binti me dey call Cape Coast. Enti no me buy no my yewi.
And the National Democratic Congress minority in Parliament says the failure of government's policies is largely to blame for the current high prices of food items. Food inflation is amongst the major contributors to Ghana's current high inflation rate. Government's flagship Planting for Food and Jobs program was expected to make food items cheaper and readily available. Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Food and Agriculture Committee, Dr. Seydou Jasso, says the program has failed to achieve the desired result.
You will notice that the National Food Buffer Stock has been reduced to just buying food items and supplying school feeding. Buffer stock and the resource, the human resource there, is worth more than that. What is aimed at doing, and 80, at least 80, I know 64 are working, the rest, government and minister keeps reporting 80. The 80 is not accurate. But if even be as it may, assume that the 80 are available to government. I think we are all living through the real manifestation of how we got our food production policy wrong as a country. I've drawn attention to this fact in the past, and we have not listened as a country. You will notice that in our particular case, food inflation alone from January till date, in fact till October ending, was 122%. That's unprecedented in any country's record. Now, you cannot say that Planting for Food and Jobs is succeeding when you do not see the food, when the logistics of allocating the food and shifting it from its production centers to where it is actually needed has not been achieved. And that is what we have got in the equation wrong. You see, what Planting for Food and Jobs does is to increase usage of fertilizer in production. So what happens is that you have average utilization of fertilizer in fields per acre increasing as an achievement. So lots of inputs being put in, production achieved in some cases, but what do we do to the production? So the post-harvest handling of even the production is suspect. I have had occasion to question the data being churned out as the production levels that has been reported by MOFA. It's been argued, and the minister has said prices are not going up, and that his wife hasn't reported to him that the prices have gone up and that he's waiting for it. But Ghanaians are living through price hikes day in, day out to a point that it is unbearable. So my questions are the following. One, that produce, that increased production that we've discussed, where has the produce gone to? I can tell you, one, we have not managed the logistics of handling the food well, and we got a structural policy wrong.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com. Stories there for you. Lots more to read. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Please stay.